Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards holding a press conference right now about security concerns. Let's listen in.
Of folks who have protested and marched at various locations day and night, very, very few have engaged in anything that was unlawful. Those that did, it was relatively minor misdemeanor offenses such as obstructing a roadway. The police tactics and response have been very moderate. I'm very proud of that as well. And in fact, as I stand before you, there's been one injury to a police officer throughout all of this time period. And while one is too many, we can be thankful that it hasn't been more. And so I want to thank the law enforcement officials from across Louisiana, and I do mean from across Louisiana. While we're here in Baton Rouge, and primarily we have the Baton Rouge Police Department and the Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office who are responding and providing for law and order here in Baton Rouge, the fact of the matter is we have state troopers involved. We have folks from different sheriff's offices around the state of Louisiana. So I want to thank them all for doing their part to keep the demonstrations peaceful and to put themselves at risk to keep the demonstrators themselves safe. As I've said from the start, the best way to honor the memory of Alton Sterling, the Dallas law enforcement officers, and Philando Castile is for peaceful demonstrations here in Louisiana. Now, the sad fact is there are folks coming from outside of Louisiana into our state and into Baton Rouge. And clearly they're welcome here so long as they're going to participate in a peaceful, lawful manner. However, they're not going to be allowed to come here, and nor will our own citizens be allowed to incite hate and violence, to engage in unlawful activities. And I want to be very clear, that will not be tolerated. We don't operate like that in Louisiana. I'm certainly proud of the people of this community and the fact that for the most part, the vast majority of them have rejected the folks who are trying to incite them to violence or to do things that are unlawful. The Baton Rouge community and people across the state can rest assured that the demonstrations are, for the most part, taking place in a proper way that protects an individual's constitutional right to assemble and to have their voices heard. And law enforcement is doing everything within their power to keep everyone, the protesters and the community at large, safe. Last night, more than 100 individuals were arrested for various reasons. To anyone who wants to peacefully protest in the community here in Baton Rouge or anywhere else in Louisiana, it's critically important that you follow the direction of the law enforcement who are in that area. You have a right to be here. You have a right to demonstrate. And clearly, you have an obligation to protect both yourself and the surrounding community. If orders are made not to obstruct a roadway and you step out into the road, that is cause for arrest, period. That is just as much for the safety of yourself as it is for the motorists and the law enforcement officers, as well as other protesters in the area. Now, today is Sunday, typically a day of rest and certainly a day of prayer. Not much rest going on here, although things have been relatively quiet. But I can assure you that, as I always do, I am praying for the people of Louisiana, for our country, and I would invite like-minded people to join their prayers to mine, that we can all make sure that we move forward in a way that is nonviolent, that is peaceful, and that we can make progress on so many fronts that are sorely needed. As I've said time and again, we're going to come out of this tragedy stronger and more united than ever. We have to, if we're going to make a difference going forward. With that, I'm going to stop here and take a few questions if you have them. Yes, sir.
Mr. Governor, I wanted to find out whether or not in the briefings you've been told, or has there been any sort of intelligence that suggests that there's some sort of coordination nationally among some groups of protesters from various cities, whether or not you've seen that and whether or not you fear that there may be a gradual or at least an attempt to gradually escalate the level of confrontation between the police officers and the protesters?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to get too deep into the information that we discussed in the briefing. There is so much information available out there that I can't tell you that I haven't heard it, because all you got to do is go online and you will see some of this for yourself. We have very little in terms of credible sources of information that would suggest that that's likely to happen, but we are mindful that it is possible. We're also mindful that there are people who will, from outside of Louisiana, who will seek to use this as a way to elevate themselves and their organizations, whether it's for recruiting purposes or whatever serves their particular purposes at the time. But at this point in time, we're not especially concerned that there's an awful lot of coordination going on from outside the state. We are paying attention to that, however.
Governor,
Yes, sir.
question. Looking at the tactics used by the Baton Rouge Police Department last night, and the amount of force and the way they were dressed and the mistrust within the community, do you think that there's a better way that the tensions can be de-escalated, and is it perhaps time for the Louisiana State Patrol to come in and maybe take over to create a calmer environment?
Well, first of all, we continually reevaluate what we're doing in light of the experiences we've had to see if there's a better way going forward. But the fact of the matter is, I'm very proud of the law enforcement, the way that they have responded, the fact that we've had so few arrests, that such minimal violence since the shooting incident. And you talk about the force last night. I'm not sure what you're referring to in terms of force from the police officers, because everything that I can gather and what I've seen myself is their response has been moderate. And certainly it's in line with the situation. I don't believe that they are being overly aggressive. And in fact, that's not borne out in just looking at the statistics. Either the number of arrests that are being made or the number of injuries to either protesters or to the law enforcement officers. And so while we always seek to do better, and we're not perfect, and we will do better, the fact of the matter is I'm very proud of the response that we've had so far. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, and maybe some of the law enforcement leaders can field this question as well. Given that this is going on for days now, what is the toll or impact on the various police departments, state police included, Baton Rouge Police Department, and do you think you have the resources to go days more?
Well, first of all, I want to assure you and all the people in Louisiana that we will do whatever is required, however long this may last, to make sure that we keep law and order, that people are going to be safe, whether they're the general public or whether they're protesters or whether they are law enforcement officers. I will tell you that at some point, obviously, it becomes very taxing for our law enforcement agencies. That's why it's so important that we have standing behind me folks who are from sheriff's departments from around the state, because the Sheriff's Association has a task force that exists exactly for this purpose. Sid Gotro, the sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish, has called upon the task force to respond in this situation. He's coordinating with them very closely. And what this allows to happen is not only do we have extra law enforcement officers on the streets here in Baton Rouge, but the folks from the Baton Rouge Police Department and from the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office can rest and actually recuperate a little bit so that they can quickly return in good order back to the protests and wherever they're going to be assigned. I'm going to ask Colonel Mike Edmondson from the State Police to address the question as well, and then following that, Sid Gotro from the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Governor. Look, we're human beings. We're tired. We understand that. We work through these issues. We train very hard with it. I can tell you we have an outstanding partnership of law enforcement in Louisiana. We may have different color uniforms and different shapes of our badge, but I can assure you we're committed to public safety and understand the trust the public places into it. If you were out last night, you certainly saw Sheriff Gotro, you saw several sheriffs from the surrounding areas that are there. You saw Chief Carl Dabney, you saw myself, because we're observing what's going on. We're making sure our guys get the proper rest, get hydrated, those types of things. But we're bringing in police officers and first responders around the state to make sure that we're committed to public safety, because it's not just about the safety of those people that are out there. It's also the safety of the police officers out there. We want to make sure it's done so in a manner that is professional, that's ethically sound, and they're doing the things that's based on our training. It's a work in progress. We have to make changes. We can certainly do that, and we do so. We're working very, very closely with our faith-based community, but keep in mind also that there are individuals that organize these protests. We work with them on the front end to be very, very proactive to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the people involved. So working with them doesn't give us the problems that we've had or we've seen happen in other states, and the fact that we've planned on these things and worked on these things together. But we are humans. They do get tired out there. We make sure we address that and have the necessary personnel to come in to work with them on that.
Sid, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'll just touch on what the governor said about our statewide emergency task force with Louisiana Sheriff's Association. We have sheriffs here from the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office, Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, Calcasieu Sheriff's Office, and we had a contingency come in today from the Caddo Sheriff's Office. All of these deputies are highly trained, not only in crowd control, but special operations as well. And the reason for it is not a show of force. As the Colonel said, as the Governor said, we're not here for a show of force. That's not it. But we have to spell and we have to relieve these deputies and officers. They get burnt out, they get tired, and we have to constantly shuffle people in and out. So that's why they're here. I can tell you that we're prepared for any contingency that may occur, but we have the personnel here we need, as the Governor said, to not only ensure the officer safety, the public safety, but also those that are out there gathering and protesting as far as their safety is concerned as well. I'll take this opportunity to touch on the arrests that were made. We had 30 arrests that were made Friday night. We had one weapon confiscated then. We had 101 arrests affected last night. Out of those arrests, the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office was an arresting agency on 5 of those arrests. Baton Rouge City Police, who is the lead agency in this, made the other arrest. Yesterday, we confiscated an additional 6 firearms, and that was a total number there. The majority of the people that are being arrested are from the Baton Rouge area. We have had some people that have been arrested from across the state, and to date we've had 19 people out of that total 132, I think, that have been arrested that are from out of state. So that kind of gives you an idea. They're all, for most of them are from misdemeanor offenses, which is obstruction of the highway and so forth. And we made it clear since the very beginning, we certainly respect the rights, but we know there's a lot of tension out there right now. We know there's a lot of emotions. There's anger, there's frustration, there's hurt, there's outrage, and we understand that. And we certainly respect the right people have to gather peacefully, to protest peacefully, and we're going to protect that right. But at the same time, we're not going to tolerate any violence, we're not going to tolerate any lawlessness, and we're not going to tolerate any destruction of property. So I'm very proud of the fact when you look around what's going around this nation today and you see the violence and the protests that are being taken places in other parts of this country, not only the injuries towards law enforcement, but injuries towards those protesters. That's not happening here in Baton Rouge, and we certainly don't want it to happen. So we have the people here in place to handle any contingency that may come forward, and I'm very proud of the way all of these agencies have worked together. I thank the Governor for his leadership, because he's been a big part in bringing us all to the table and allowing us to do our jobs. Thank you.
And there we have it, authorities speaking live this Sunday evening in Louisiana in the wake of the protests there last night. Dozens and dozens of arrests. We'll continue to monitor this press conference as it goes on.